The Layla Show.
Bienvenue to the Wabi Show, a podcast where we connect with fascinating individuals and creators from all over the world to share stories, perspectives, experiences, and unravel the fundamentals of existence. With your host, me, Layla Ziari. And welcome, guys. On this week's episode, we have our guest, Clare Morgan, and this is her first time on a podcast, so this is very exciting. And Clare is a UK-based fine artist specializing in linocut printmaking. Clare creates beautiful original artwork, portraits blended with Art Nouveau-inspired natural elements and Art Deco patterns, which are infused with colors that represent growth and healing, created for strong, independent individuals to uplift the spirit. In her spare time, she enjoys outdoor swimming, improv, and volunteers for lymphoma action. And she has 2 sets of DNA. Well, can we just lead with the what are your 2 sets of DNA? Because I don't remember if we talked about this, but are you an alien or something? Do you have what is it, the RN, RCN, and it?
So we're just diving in straight there. So the 2 sets of DNA. Well, actually, that's interesting. That's because, as you know already, I was diagnosed with blood cancer in 2016, and part of my treatment was a donor stem cell transplant, which means that to do that process, they have to kill all of your bone marrow, and then they use stem cells from a donor, from another human, to repopulate all of that bone marrow, and then it kind of grows, and that's what forms my blood, my immune system cells, all the different cells in my bloodstream. So my blood is the DNA of the donor.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. I didn't even know that was a thing, because you think things regenerate, your body regenerates, so you would just assume whatever you got.
They're coming from the root, the bone marrow itself, and it's just really fascinating. It's really, it's fascinating. It's called I call it being a chimera.
Okay.
And they call it, actually, within medicine as well, it's called chimerism. So I had to have tests regularly to check what my chimerism was, and the aim was to get 100% donor cells and 0% my
well, it sounds like it did its job, because here you are and healthy, and that's great.
Yeah.
So, not to just dive in completely on that topic, but tell us a bit about your story. This does all coincide with the story, though, because as I know, you started really getting back into art because of your experience with cancer. So let's talk about that. Share your story a bit with our friends here.
Yeah, so honestly, art has always been my absolute passion. It's the only thing I was good at since I was a small child. And I did go on to study fine art. My dad was obviously quite worried about me studying fine art, because he wanted me to get a proper job with a good income so I could look after myself. And at that point, I was very much I don't want to be part of the system. I'm just going to go my own route. I just want to make art. It's fine. Everything's going to take care of itself. But then you do sort of hit the ground with a thud. And then I ended up going into teaching, which I love, because I came at it through working as an artist in schools. So I did leave university and I did start making art, and I started to do workshops. Then I ended up in schools, and I thought, actually, this is actually all right. I'm enjoying this. I went into art education. But during my time in education, they kind of became this, I don't know whether it was from me or expectation or where it was coming from, but I just started to go up the ranks in school and take on more responsibility, until the point where I was in a leadership role, where I wasn't in the classroom as much. It was mostly sort of whole school focused policies, things like that. I enjoyed the challenge of it, but it felt really unsettling. I felt uneasy, not living my true purpose, perhaps, if I look back at it now. I couldn't put my finger on it at the time.
Right, what it sounds like.
And it was definitely a tough job. But then I started to become unwell, and I would go to work anyway. I was always, driven to get there. you know, I wouldn't let things put me off getting in. And so, yeah, I had a time of being really poorly for quite a while, like a couple of years. And then the illnesses stacked up on top of each other to the point where I started to have trouble with my voice, and I had to have like speech therapy, and like all these things were happening. And then eventually I was at work and I was feeling really rubbish, and I went to the doctors after work. I was going to the doctors during this time. We couldn't really figure out what was going on. No one knew what was going on.
What's happening, all right.
Yeah, it was all just like repeated infections and just being just unwell, but not being able to put it down to anything in particular. And then I went after work and they said, oh, you're tachycardic and you've obviously got a temperature, we're a bit worried about you. So they put me in hospital, and I was there for 2 weeks while they figured out what was wrong. And I got 2 diagnoses in the hospital. The first one was an immune disorder where I don't produce immunoglobulins. So that's why I was getting the infections, because, and I still don't produce those actually. I am very thankful to have immunoglobulins from like people all over the world apparently, like when people donate their blood serum and blood donations and stuff, they can siphon all of those lovely things off, and that keeps me well. So thankful actually for all of the medical care that I've had. It's been amazing. So that was my first diagnosis, and then I had to have a bone marrow biopsy, which not that pleasant.
Sounds traumatic a bit, but you know.
It's fine. But then they told me that I had something called peripheral T-cell lymphoma, which is a rarer form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had no idea what lymphoma was. I didn't associate that word with cancer or anything. I had no clue.
I think it's the most like loosely like thrown around type of cancer either, because I have heard the phrase in life, but still don't really know what it is. They've been talking to you.
And then, so I remember just sitting in that room, and then she was like, yes, it's this peripheral T-cell lymphoma. It's stage 4, which means it had already gone to my spleen and my liver, and like, it was pretty much everywhere. And then I weirdly, I initially kind of felt a bit of relief because I knew what was wrong and it could be fixed, because I knew that wasn't right. So that was the start of being able to start getting fixed. Obviously it was scary and terrifying and all those things, but also I knew what was happening, and that was something that I really valued, because I could actually put some action into doing something.
Right. That sounds like it was a very liberating moment for you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than like not knowing what's wrong with you and being like, all right, well, you know, it's so much better to just know, even if it's like a traumatic explanation, like, yeah, stage 4 cancer, awesome, because yeah, at least then you can work on it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think I found it, you know, I'm glad I found it they found it when they did. So I started to go through chemo, and the idea was if I had like 6 rounds of chemo, if they went well, they would look at whether they could do a stem cell transplant, which they did. So like there was just all of this, but I think during that time, I felt, as well as obviously there is, I'm not going to say it wasn't hard, but there was a lot of that time when I felt calm and like everything else had been taken away. Like I did not have to worry about anything else at all during that time, except for looking after myself, getting better. I planned in things to do with family, so we always had stuff in the diary that we could go and do. And I sold my car and bought a little Mazda MX-5, a little soft top, and just drove around with the roof off that, and I just did all the things at that point, because I thought, well, you don't know then. They basically said it was 50-50. So I thought, well, that's like a toss of a coin, or like I might as well just get as much in as I can and enjoy it as much as I can. And there was like real joy, like during that time. It was so joyful.
Well, because you were like attached to none of these things you had told yourself you had to be attached to, I suppose.
Yeah,
at the time,
did not matter. And you discover that you're completely replaceable. So all these things that I was doing in my role and in my job someone else was in that position now, altering those policies and changing those things and reshaping how the school functioned. Like, didn't need me for that, really. I wanted to start shaping something for myself. I wanted to put my efforts and energies into something that would be like a lasting legacy of me, that's mine, that I've created, that I'm in control of. Nobody's going to come because I'm an artist, I make my artwork. Nobody's going to come and start taking that over or changing it or altering it. It's like, it's my expression. It's it's what I'm leaving on the planet when I'm gone.
It is your legacy. Yeah, exactly. No one can take that from you. You're like building
when I went back, it was very much like, I'm going to keep making art. And the going back to work bit was probably the hardest part of it all, because you've been taken out of the real world and like popped into this really surreal experience that is so different to normal everyday life. Then you go back and you're expected to kind of just slot back in again to all of those things.
There's no going back. Once you get to the good side, you can't go back.
It's really tough. So I started to do mindfulness, and I did a course at Maggie's, which is like, in the UK, it's a charity that supports people who are going through cancer and post-cancer as well. They did this course, and a lot of the things that I learned during that like really stick with me. So my business name is Curious Inky Me, and that's because curious represents the fact that I want to live with a childlike curiosity. I want to hold on to that no matter what. So it's in my business name.
Fundamentally, I think like the most important principle of living as a human in general. So like, yes to that.
Yeah, 100%. There was that, and then other elements like thoughts and not facts, and just being more present as well, actually. I mean, I love the concepts of mindfulness. That's definitely stayed with me, but I am definitely an active mindful person. I find my mindfulness through walking or swimming, like being in nature, carving, printing. That's how it suits me. I think sometimes people get put off because they think mindfulness is being able to somehow switch off your thoughts and
that's such like a misconstrued concept. And I know like when I teach yoga, and I've been on this like weird spiritual I don't exist in society life my whole life, and I can say when I started practicing quote unquote mindfulness and being more deliberate in my manifestations, like I was like, well, what the fuck? My mind is never going to be quiet. Like there's not, and that isn't what it is. Mindfulness is just being present in your shit, in your happiness. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like the whole concept that it's all just like some wondrous mystical thing where you just have to be happy all the time and feel good while you're doing it, and just like, no, it's just like mindfulness is so just like being present for wherever you're at with yourself, and like being more intentional about your life in general, which is what.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly it. And it's not having the judgment around those thoughts either. It's just accepting like what those happen to be in that particular moment. Can't change them. So yeah, I thought it was a really nice explanation.
Thank you. And it's very important.
Really important, yeah. So a lot of that has informed my artwork ultimately, because the art is my way, I think, of reminding myself of all of the lessons that I learned during that time. Because I think as you get into the busyness of the world again, and all those like little things just start coming back, that actually just putting them into perspective again and just remembering where their place is, and actually remembering to be present right now, like not spending time in the past and not trying to think too far ahead to the future, but actually I'm all right. And in this particular moment right now, I'm good.
Yep, you have everything you need in this moment. And I mean, I feel like art is probably like your rootedness to that, because like you said, I mean, like I've gone through phases in my life where I've literally like not owned a cell phone, lived in the middle of nowhere, like completely detached from society in such a profound way that eventually I was like, well, I want to go back. But it's so like, when you do get back in that busyness, like no matter how much you're like, okay, well, I've done without all this. So like, no, you do end up succumbing back to that energy. It's inevitable. You have to start participating again. So it's like, sounds like art is kind of like your rootedness to that side of yourself. And for me too, I know, I'm sure a lot of artists feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as you're kind of creating it, I love seeing how that connects with other people as well, and how, I don't know, I feel like people are drawn to artwork that they need. And without me even saying anything, I think people who have had challenging times often will pick up pieces and connect with pieces, and it resonates with them. And they can tell me stories about why. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, that actually I'm making this work out of my story and my perspective. I feel called to create it. But that's only like a little piece of the puzzle. The rest of the puzzle is when that work is out there, and then that work's person discovers it.
Right. Yeah, you're like creating this for someone and you don't even know who it's for.
Yeah.
It.
And it will speak to them, and it might not be in the way that I've intended. They might see something completely different in it.
Right. Which is totally fine, and what makes art so beautiful though, honestly, because like nobody really shares the same perspective in its entirety anyway. But I think that's one of like the most exciting thing about physical art, you know, because like people can pick it up, take it home, and they do interpret it in so many different ways. And I'm obsessed with art myself, and I'm looking at some of your art in the background. They're not going to be able to see, but I love your art. They will see it when I give them your links and they check it out on the internet, but I love it has a lot of feeling and soul and spirit, as do you. So, and I feel like that definitely comes out a lot.
Oh, that's really kind.
But yeah, so you healed from cancer and continued being an art, and how has that, like, now you're just doing all this cool stuff, but you are teaching again, right? And you are like half time, half in, half out of all this.
Yeah. I'm what do you call it? A multi-passionate human being. I could call it that.
Art.
So I teach part-time. I reduce all my responsibility. So I'm not in charge of anything. I just go in and I get to work with the students. I love it because with the younger ones, that's lovely because they're just enjoying it. It's joyful. And then the older ones, you're helping them find their artistic voice. And I think that's really good. And kind of giving them positive messages as well. I want to be the kind of art teacher that kind of lets them be creative and explore and play and find their message actually and what they want to use their art to communicate. I think it's really important. So I love the teaching. Then the other side is the artwork. So it's show season at the moment. So I'm spending 2 or 3 weekends a month where I'll go to physical events like artisan fairs and things and rock up with my table and all of my artwork and get to meet human beings and talk to them, and just the energy of that. I love that. So this is kind of a really nice time. I think the spring and the summer are my most vibrant times.
Teachers don't work this summer either, so you have like that whole
exactly
to just play and be weird and awesome and show up like with no response. Oh, that's so nice.
Oh well, the holidays are good actually because during each school holiday I get a chance to just like create. So I'll usually batch my creativity to when I've got those chunks of time, and then make space for it. So this morning I was printing this morning. I created a piece maybe a couple of weeks ago called Freedom, and it's so sunny here in the UK right now. So that print, I kind of had a plan of what I wanted it to look like. I always have vague floating plans. But then I just do it. I'm not very good at sketching and formalising anything. I'll just do it. So it's ended up being really bright. It's got like coral in it, bright blue, bright green, bright yellow. It's super bright. And then I've put like a dark blue for all of the detail at the top. It's definitely an expression of the feeling of today. Because I like to make work that represents the time and the moment it was created in. And often that's to do with the seasons. So I find it has a flow through the year. So earlier in the year, it might be more reflective. I do a lot of figures in my work. They'll often have their eyes closed. It'll be cooler colours, nurturing colours. As it gets towards the summer, the colours get a bit more fiery, a bit more vibrant. A lot of the stuff is to do with seasons. I feel like I'm going to go off track now.
There is no track here.
So
if you've met me at all, I am not a track-oriented kind of person. There is a path here, and I deliberately go off it every time.
I'm just going to delve into the meaning then. So I'm fascinated by Eastern philosophy. I started to, so this was before I was ill. I used to go to like mind, body and spirit events because I loved listening to the Taoist speakers, and I loved listening to concepts like yin and yang and kind of how we go with the flow of nature, and some of that kind of came through the mindfulness bit as well. Like there's something about connecting with nature and going with the flow of the seasons that I think I really resonate with, because I think particularly because of the type of job I had before, and kind of living in the world that we're in, I feel like we are judged on our productivity. We are expected to be on all of the time, that we are expected to be the same all of the time.
Which is absolutely blasphemous and absolutely defies the actual laws of, like you said, nature, because nature has seasons. Yes. Bears hibernate. They go to bed for a whole ass half of the year. Like, the natural order is to relax. Like, there's seasons and reasons, which is why, like, I always say we live in, like, completely inverted reality, because we are, like, treated by a higher standpoint as machines, and that's not what we are. We are living, breathing entities with feelings, emotions, and seasons, just like the bear and just like the tree. I'm not that different from the bear or the tree.
I love what you just said, seasons for reasons.
Yeah.
I love it. That's such a good saying. So yeah, we need those.
That can be your saying.
It might end up as like as a quote. Like
yes, the seasons for reasons.
I love it. So yeah, we need those. We need to learn from what we are seeing in nature around us, and understand that we're a part of it, and to try and connect with it a bit more. And I think that's what Eastern philosophy gets really well. They take teachings and lessons from the world around them, and honestly, it just really resonates. So I often use that within the work. So, for example, they have the Chinese elements, which go throughout the year, that are different to what we would understand as elements. There's metal and fire and wood, and each one feeds the next one along. So, for example, spring is wood, but then that will feed the fire season. So it's basically circular.
Yeah, it's cyclical.
Like, yeah. Like sometimes we think of everything so linearly, like it's got to be one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing.
It's like defies again the complete actual laws, any universal, anything that makes sense.
Because it's so circular. I mean, I use circles a lot. I use circles in the artwork quite a bit to represent this idea of kind of unity and cycles and seasons. It's in my logo as well. I use one that looks like it's been drawn with a brush, because that represents the Enzo circle. And Enzo is just like a Buddhist practice, which it's a meditative practice that people would perhaps do in the morning, and they'll just take a brush and they will just create a circle with that brush and some ink, and that circle just is what it is, and it's a record of that particular moment. And to me, that's kind of the moment of its creation. Again, that's all just reminding myself to be present.
Yeah, which is very important. And it is all cyclical. I mean, like, seasons are cyclical. Like, every single, like, actual fundamental principle or, like, law of universal anything is cyclic cycle. And, you know, we all are existing in that. So I love that you incorporate so much about that. And I too, like, I think Eastern philosophy is great, and I've been fascinated with it my whole life because it's just correct. I mean, there is no right or wrong, but let's be clear,
Yeah.
it's correct.
And the other philosophy that's kind of been present probably since about 2019 is the concept of Wabi Sabi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that well, so if anybody's familiar with it, I'm pronouncing it wrong, I am so sorry. But it's the concept. The concept is that all things are impermanent, incomplete, and imperfect. And actually, just to remember that, because it kind of captures that element. Like for me, it captures that element of transience, and also like we don't need. I don't know. We're always going to be on this journey. We don't need to know everything.
No.
It's okay.
And we never will. And like to think that we could is coming from such an ego attached perspective. Like there's no way to know everything. And that's the beauty of life, and who would want to, honestly. Yeah, I just looked up the Google definition of Wabi Sabi, which I really love. Wabi Sabi, which I'm probably not Wabi Sabi. I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying it right either. They are not telling me how to pronounce it, but it is the view or thought of finding beauty in every aspect of imperfection in nature. It is about the aesthetic of things in existence that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete, like you said. But I just love that. I love that. Yeah, you're the first one introducing me to this philosophy, so yeah. I do appreciate the.
You can see it with, like, say, things with the passage of time, like patina on objects to me. You know, like, say, if you've got copper that's starting to weather and you get that, that's kind of that element of imperfection and impermanence, like that. It's just all these beautiful things. Like, I had a real thing for, like, derelict buildings when I was younger. And things kind of decaying or disappearing. There is such beauty in it.
There really is. Well, I mean, like, destruction is creation, and also, like, yeah, all the new, like, oh, everything has to be perfectly symmetrical buildings, and, like, it's so meticulously trying to be perfect, and, you know, I'm just thinking of, like, you know, like one day I bought a crystal, and this is just, like, referring to one of those phrases, and it had a crack right down the middle, and the lady was like, why do you want one? And I was like, because the crack is how the light gets in, lady. And I love that crystal necklace. It's perfect with the crack in it. I don't want a perfected stone every time.
Yeah, I love that.
Who wants to be perfect? It's overrated. It won't exist either way. I mean, you can't be.
And otherwise, like, if you hadn't taken that, where would it be?
I don't know. Like, somebody else might have grabbed it, but would they have loved it so much? I don't know. She thought it was bad. She discounted it like 50% because she's like, this is a shit stone. Like, no, it's
you could. I mean, there's that, is it? Now I'm going to pronounce this so badly. The one, I'm not going to even try and pronounce it. I'm going to tell you what it is without pronouncing what I think it's called.
All right.
They use gold to repair cracked pottery.
Oh, yeah. I don't know God, don't make me say the word either. Yes.
And I've got an idea, but I'm not going to use the words because I'm going to butcher them.
Yep. I'm not going to, wait, should we look it up? I don't know. I know exactly what you're talking about though, but like, and it's beautiful. It's like this lovely little gold leaf on an imperfection, which like gold is regal. And
and it's about celebrating those imperfections again. And actually, like, this, because I did a whole series of works where the figures were fragmented. So, because the basis of the work, like, a lot of the work is about my journey. So at first, like, just as I was getting better, the figures were falling through the air. They were like, I did a whole series of falling figures because that was capturing the idea of uncertainty and not knowing what was going to happen and feeling like you're in free fall, because that's kind of what the whole experience felt like. Mm-hmm. So, but they were infused with colours because there was hope in there and there was joy in there and there was kind of a life in there. And then they moved on to these sort of circus performers. So I went and photographed aerial acrobats and documented them and sketched them. And then I drew them. They were moving through space. They were so strong and like so powerful, but I fragmented them and made it look as if they were just sort of disintegrating into space, because I kind of liked the idea of this strength and vulnerability together, and how there's power from the things that you experience or the things that you go through. Like every time that a crack happens, we're actually not weaker for it. We are
so much stronger for it. And it's not always pleasant going through it, but I mean, I know for sure, like, the hardest experiences of my life have made the most beautiful lessons and most profound good influence on my personal journey. And, you know, I don't love to be vulnerable all the time, but, you know, when you are, you get the best things out of it. And yeah, I love all of that. I love that you incorporate everything I feel about life in your art in like such a beautiful way, which is like so nice, because, you know, I'm over here like just throwing shit out of the walls, like not really knowing where that goes. You figured out where it goes, and that's.
I'm writing poetry. Don't forget, yours is like language.
Sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes when I'm emotional.
It's a journey.
It all is. It's all a journey. I do want to bring up the word you taught me, though, because everybody needs to use this now. The batcher mentality. I've been obsessed with this, and I've told so many people since we chatted last time. So, like, yeah, when we're chatting, Claire's over here and she's like, yeah, you know, I batch things. And I'm like, what? And like, we're talking about how as artists, you know, sometimes you just like, you completely like ignore one thing and you're just all about that one thing for a moment, and you have to be all about that one thing, and then the thing switches, but you're still all about that, the batcher mentality. And I love that.
Yeah. So this is basically a new thing me and Layla have discovered. So yeah, we'll add it to the personality archetypes list, I think. But yeah, absolutely, batcher. It's the only way to be. Well, I don't know. For me, it's the only way I can be.
I can't do anything else.
Focus my attention, do the thing. That needs to be the whole thing. I'm like all in or all out.
Right, it has to be. I have to be laser pinpoint focused on whatever I do, and it has to be the only thing that exists in my entire universe, and then it gets done.
Yes. Absolutely, and that's fine. I think it's like learning how it works for you, actually. Like, so I will, if I'm in a mood for like, if I've got ideas floating around my head of imagery, for example, I will sketch up all of my plates, but I might sketch up like 3 or 4 plates, 3 or 4 lino cuts, and draw them all out, and then they're ready for when I'm feeling in a carving mood.
Right. Oh,
and then I will go
so many different phases of your process too.
And then I will carve, or if it's photography, or, you know, like all the businessy bits of the art stuff, which actually is also really creative. I love doing like my social media and like the photos for Instagram. I love like
it's very fun. I get a lot of joy out of doing that. Finally.
Yeah. I love it because it is just another creative outlet. But I will batch that as well. I will have a writing session, because I just need to get all the words out, all in a chunk, like, and that because I'm in the zone for writing. I can't be doing little bits. People that could do little bits of things for a day, and you know when people say, "Oh, just break it down, just do a little bit a day, it's fine." You can, oh my goodness, I mean,
no, I don't know how. I like literally don't know how.
My way works. I'm fine with it.
I'm a batcher for life.
Yeah, I'm owning it.
As you
it's good. The stuff gets done. So
yeah, I mean, you know what? It's getting done. But yeah, you know, I don't know how anybody does anything else without doing that. It makes no sense to me. All in. I have to be all in. I have to live, breathe, and die for that thing in the moment, and then then something else later. So also you have been doing improv lately, which I just love with all my heart and probably should be doing with my life. Can we talk about that?
Oh, you need to try it. You see, improv to me is like, I don't know, it's life skills. I feel improv. There's rules in improv that actually filter through to your everyday life that are really powerful. Like, I mean, I've been doing improv, but I'll probably give you a little bit of context. I've been doing improv since pre-pandemic. Okay. And during the pandemic, we actually started doing it online as well. We were doing Zoom improv
Like
sessions.
fun.
That's crazy. And now we're back in the real world again. And it was an accident. I did not know what improv was. Did not have a clue. I met 2 stand-up comedians for a coffee. They mentioned that they were starting a improv group. That morning I'd been at a gallery and they got me to talk on a microphone about my artwork, and I just found it so difficult. So in my head I'm thinking, oh, I've got this kind of difficulty, like teaching's fine, but speaking in a gallery to like in a different way was really hard.
Right.
So I had that in my head. Oh, maybe the improv will help. And then you go to improv and it is like, just like playing. You have just a few hours to just play. It's like you're a kid. Like the words just come out of your mouth. You don't have to filter yourself. You don't have to engage your brain before you say anything. You just go with the flow of whatever's happening, responding to the person that's just gone before you. And I think the rules for life that I would take from improv is, the first one would be yes and. So when you do improv, you always build on the other person's story. You never shut them down. Like you don't just end it. You kind of build on it. And I think that's just a good thing to be as a human. The other thing is to always try and make the other person look better in your scene. Like make your scene partner look as good as possible. I think that's a really nice.
I like that philosophy just in life. Like, let's make all of our friends and companions look better.
I think
not be gassing each other up all the time.
Those are probably the only. There's definitely more, but I can't probably think of them. I think it's just responding to things, going with the flow. Not kind of judging stuff. I think it's good. I mean, there's all kinds of scenes we do, like, because it's a completely safe space. They even do scenes where we're just warming up that are called brown water scenes, which is like when you just switch the tap on. Obviously, I don't think, in some places when you maybe switch the tap on, you maybe got a bit of the horrible water and you've got to leave the tap on for the water to run clear.
Mm-hmm.
But actually do those scenes because sometimes you just got to just do it to get rid of that.
Right, yeah. Clear out the dusty drains, except dusty is not water, so those rusty pipes.
But there's no judgment in it. It's just like everybody's so supportive, and the community is really lovely. So
that's like kind of the best part, just like the whole community vibe, playing amongst people who are all there to play. Like I love that. You and should be doing that, because I don't want to be in any communities that we don't all play like children ever again for the rest of my life. Oh, and yeah, it sounds great. So you do that often-ish enough, and I want to start joining. I feel like I want to come live in your life for a second, because I just love it. I feel like we would have a lot of fun. I would enjoy being in your life,
It would be really fun. I think you would love it. I think the improv people would love it. I think you'd love improv, to be honest.
Right. I think so too. I think you're not the first one who's told me that. One day, maybe I'll start an improv group over here or there, wherever I go, or just join one. I don't need to start any more things. Let's be clear.
I think it's interesting because I've done improv with this one group, which are kind of, but there are other groups around me as well. And they do kind of have different styles. So the rules, to me, I think the rules are quite important because they make the space kind of safe and kind and lovely. I think I've been to one group where they don't really have any rules, and that was kind of just, it was still fun, but it was fun because I've been doing it for a while. I think if I'd have gone and I hadn't ever done it before, I'd be like, what? Like,
Right, like, give me some direction, please. Yeah, need some. I mean, directionless is great, but I like to have a destination a little bit.
Yeah, rules are good. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. They were talking about rules and how, I think they knew someone that was working in a creative company who they'd had all the rules kind of taken away as a way of making them more creative. But I was like,
that's stressful.
Rules kind of help you be creative in a sense.
Right. Well, especially if you're like working for a company, like you want to have at least like a direction or something, like not a rule even per se, but just like a general concept or direction, or else like you're completely just free falling, which is fun to free fall. But no, there's a right use of power and a right time for rules, and I think, we can't just throw everything to the wind and say fuck it. We can try, but yeah, I don't want any sort of creative job where they're just like, this is you. Now create what though? But what?
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of need, it's like a compass, isn't it? You need a bit of direction.
Yeah, direction and objective, something.
Yeah, it's interesting. So actually, when you write poetry, you must like, I also think about the art version. I kind of have these images in my head. I do set myself rules because I've got kind of a medium and a style and subject matter that will be in there, and influences that I know that there needs to be a circle in there, for example, or an arch, or like there are kind of parameters. Do you have parameters when you're doing?
No. But when I paint and stuff, so when I paint it's different, but poetry for me, cause like I don't even know like how I started writing in the first place, like it was totally spontaneous, random, and just like happened. And then like the poems just kind of kept happening, and then it was like at the point in time when I was writing like poetry all the time. I still write a little bit at the time, but not as much as I was. I would just my brain would just be on 24/7. So it's like I couldn't go anywhere. Like I couldn't even go to the bathroom. I couldn't even take a fucking shower. I would have to have like the phone mic in there because like the words would just stream into my head through stream of consciousness, and whatever like I cared about at the time, I guess was my general rule. Like my poetry was always like a reflection on some chapter in my life, be it like whatever that music I was listening to, whatever I was like focusing on my like general life. So I guess that was kind of the concept, except that I never had any intention to make any poetry out of any of it. So it's just kind of like, yeah, like my poetry definitely has like, there's eras of my life where you can be like, well, she was a moody, sentimental, sad person during this time, or like, wow, she was madly in love with everything around her. Like, and you can tell that through my writing. But as it stands for any like rules, I don't even have like a intention of how it's styled. Although like eventually when I'm editing it, I'm like, this should rhyme better. Maybe I'll change that word. So it like looks like it's flowing. But like poetry, I can't explain what mystical force of the universe channels words to me. But it's not me, and I'm not in charge, and I have absolutely no say of what comes out.
It sounds like actually a lot of it is you've got to get it out of your head.
Yep. Yeah.
And actually that's flow as well. I mean, I know I said I have rules for art in a sense, like there's elements in there, but once it starts happening, once I start sketching or start carving, or like today when I was printing, I was putting the colours together, there was no pre-planning in any way, shape or form. I think those moments, those are kind of when you really tap into flow. But right. I find that I just need something to get me there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it's the same with poetry, but it could be like the damn bird chirping outside, and that bird could chirp it just away, and then here you have like an epic poem that goes on for 7 pages that probably has nothing to do with that bird at all. But it's just...
So maybe it's not a rule at all. Maybe actually it's just a prompt.
It is. I do feel like with art it is a little bit, because like if I'm painting something per se, like I definitely have more of a vision when I am like painting a picture or like an intention more so than when I'm writing. I think writing is just like my complete free for all. And even this podcast, it's a free for all as well, but at least this even has some structure. Like I go into it like having an idea of what I'll speak about. Poetry is nothing like that. Poetry for me is just like, I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it's going. I don't know when it will stop. I don't know when it will start. Like, I'm not really writing a lot of poetry right now, but like, yeah, there will be days like, well, I will just do nothing but write, and it's not even intentional. It's just like, it's gotta go somewhere.
No, that's the thing about the flow of just going with it, because there's quiet times. There's still stuff happening. It'll just be we're just not conscious of it. And we need that pause to build up the energy for that batching.
Right, that batching. And there's something, oh God, I want to like think of it. I think it was in one of my oracle cards. It's like one of my favorite descriptions of the oracle in one of my oracle decks. And it's like, the guy went to look at like Van Gogh painting, and he was like watching him paint, and he was like, he was watching him lay on a bed and do like nothing outside, just like chilling in the garden. And the guy's like, "What are you doing? It's your day off." And he's like, "No, I'm working." And then like the next day the guy goes and looks at him painting and he goes, "Oh, you're at work today." And he's like, "No, I'm relaxing." And it really kind of is like that, because like when you have those moments to sit, it's when you are able to connect more, and it is when you do detach, and like my best things come from like doing nothing, and then the inspired. Sit until you're inspired, because I know I personally, like, my ADHD brain used to just be like psychotically need to do something all the time, so it'd be like, and like I can't tell you how many stupid projects, they weren't stupid, they were great in their time, but like I just started way too many things that really didn't really matter. It was just like I need to fill my brain, I need to do something with all of this energy. And it's like, so I would like start a million businesses and then just like cancel them the next week. Like, I don't really want to do this. This is a great idea for a second, but you know. So finally, as I get older, like I do value so much of that time for just sitting, processing, and not necessarily just acting, like waiting for the divine inspiration before I just act too much and then overwhelm myself with things I'll never finish. Yeah.
No, I get that.
But we all have a process. I don't know. It's, there's a time for all of it, I think. So
The thing is, all of that had to happen for you to get to a space where you are now, where you are able to, because you recognise that in yourself, so you can then,
right,
like, take that time, know that it's nurturing, that you need it.
right. And sometimes I don't love it. Like sometimes that time lasts for like a whole year, and I'm like, really, nothing? Are you sure? Can I get a little push now? But I mean, I don't know, because we all have different processes. So your process might be like completely opposite from mine. Like, I don't know.
I think I will go through like big chunks of time where I'm not really creating anything.
Right.
And then I'll create maybe a few pieces together, and then I might need a little bit of time. And I don't want to, because I think I went through a period where I was like making it was quite productive. I was making quite a lot, but I think I've let myself off the hook a little bit. I don't need, because I'm so prolific, don't really need to be. So I've slowed it down, and I don't mind. And the time that I spend between making things, this kind of thoughts, this stuff going on, this thinking, this stuff happening in my brain.
Right.
And I think I start it when I get to the point where I'm really wanting to start it. Like, it's just got to that point where actually, do you know what? It's percolated enough.
Right.
Had enough time. I'm actually really, really want to do this at this point. And I don't mind having months without doing things. I mean, when I first started, I was doing, I challenged myself to do a portrait a day for like a year.
That's so ambitious.
I was on Instagram drawing portraits, one piece of artwork every single day, and I did it for the year, and I loved it, and it helped me with my portraiture and stuff. But I don't know. I think I've got a better balance now.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, because like the rigidity of like, and that's really cool and admirable. And I definitely went through phases where I thought I would want to write some, but it also like puts a structure and a deadline and a timeline and an expectation on art, which I think the best thing about art in general is how it teaches us how to live more mindfully and be more present and go with the flow more in life. And I think that's why I love being an artist, because it does that. And like something like that kind of does, like, now you're under pressure to do all that, but it's also great because it's a good exercise also in whatever,
I mean, I do
there's
remember
sides to this.
when I started drawing, it was like, sometimes I was like, oh, I really don't want to start this. But when you start, you just like have that 5 minutes, and then you can do the rest of it. It's fine.
Right, exactly.
But no, I find there's just so many different things that I fill my days with. I think sometimes I need to get to the point where I miss doing art, or I miss
right, yeah.
something.
God, you're making me miss writing, so you're doing your job today.
And then I'll come back.
It always comes back. Everything, like we said, the cyclic cycle. Things have seasons and reasons.
Yeah, seasons and reasons.
And
Love it.
who are we to decide what those are? Because I swear to you, I'm not in charge of any of my own reality. I create a lot of it, but I'm really not in charge. Like, I'd like to think I am, but I'm not.
It's that thing about just letting go and just going with the flow and understanding there's things, there's lots of things we can't really control, but we can control like our thoughts and our actions and how we approach things.
Right, and like how, we can control how we like react and all that, but we're not in charge. And I think that's probably like the whole basis of your entire like cancer. Everything is like, hey, you're not in charge. If that wasn't the universe telling you exactly that, like, let go with the flow, here you go, surrender completely to the unknowingness of all that is and could be.
Yeah, just ultimate message is just like I had a solo show actually, and I taglined it. The only thing is certain is that everything is uncertain.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with that. And surrender is the greatest gift, even if it's like, and we all learn that in different ways. And it sounds like that's like a huge, at least for you, and well, for me too. In this lifetime, it seems like that was a very, very needed to learn lesson on your part. And I think it's really great how you handled that, because like, I don't know anybody else in the world who would tell me what you went through and just be like, I was so liberated and positive about it.
I mean, I do want to caveat with that. I'm not a psycho, and there was times it was
of course.
Tough, but overwhelmingly, I wouldn't change it, because I think everything I wouldn't change anything actually, even if I was to go back and change and do what I'm doing now. Before, I wasn't ready and I wasn't in the right mindset. I needed that to happen to get to the space where I am now, to be able to do what I'm doing now. Like, we are made up of all those different moments our entire lifetime. All of those things add up and they make us where we are right now. And the person I am right now is literally right now. I don't know who I'm going to be in a year's time, 2 years' time.
I don't know who I'm going to be tomorrow, so.
That's fine.
It is, and it's like, you do kind of have to surrender to that, because, I mean, you really don't know. You have no idea what's going to be thrown in your path. Beautiful, lovely. I mean, it's all beautiful at the end of the day, but there are things that are harder. And, but why? Like, I don't want to change anything. And, like, there are times in my life, if I look back at it, and I would never, ever in a million years be like that again. But it's like, well, why? Because I went through that, so.
Yeah.
And that's why.
You are.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's all beautiful. It's all about perspective and mindfulness. It really is. Like, this entire lifetime is all about how you look at it. We could sit here and wallow about all our misfortunes and fortunes and why this didn't happen, but there's absolutely no sense in that, because it takes so much away of how beautiful this entire journey is as a whole anyway, with all the things that happen. That's part of it.
Yeah. And we need to, like, enjoy, like, what we've got, because you don't know, like, you literally don't know how long you've got. And you want to make sure that actually when people remember you, you want to be remembered for making people feel good, hopefully.
Right, like reaching people, connecting with people, sharing your story, I mean, like, we're not meant to, like we were talking about before, be machines and just go on repeat and task, productive. Like, your soul and your spirit, I promise, is not measured by your level of productivity today.
No one's going to remember that stuff anyway. No one's going to remember how productive you were at work, or, and like I said earlier, I was completely replaceable in my role.
But now you're not.
No, I'm like me. I'm just creating.
Now you're authentically yourself, and now you're irreplaceable. and uncopyable, and there will never be another. And that's what makes humans so goddamn perfect in their imperfections, and that's why I love them all so much.
I love that, and you brought a bit of Wabi Sabi in at the end.
It's all about the Wabi Sabi. I'm going to study this a bit more, because, yeah, Eastern philosophy is great. Well, anyways, do you want to add things? What else? Anything else you want to chit-chat about? Because I feel like we just full circled that way quicker than I thought we would, but even though it's been like an hour, but like we just really wrapped up the whole
I don't know. I feel like, do you know what? I feel like that was such a nice, profound message that you had.
I feel like we full circled that.
I feel like that feels like a conclusion. We could easily go down a number of
different rabbit holes, but I think we like went down this rabbit hole pretty well. Like that was really, this made me feel so good, and I'm still recording, so you'll all get to hear how good this makes me feel. No offense to all my previous and future people, but this was my favorite one so far.
And you know what? I have absolutely loved it as well, because as you know, this is like my first time talking about this stuff on a podcast. So thank you for like asking me questions, giving me the space to talk, and being so kind and generous with your time.
Well, thanks for coming, because this was a blast. I mean, it's always good to connect with people, but I feel like you and I just have such a similar, like, outlook on existence itself, which makes talking to you just so, like, easy. It's like talking to myself, but another version of myself. It's great. I'm all for that. But yeah, so thank you for coming. I don't know. I'm going to put all your links on this podcast. You are Curiously Inky Me, and that's you. That's Claire. And yeah, so thanks for tuning into The Layla Show with me and Claire. You should come back soon. I'd have you on again. You're good.
I'd love to. I've got ideas actually, so I'm going to have to catch up with you I've got thoughts what we could talk about.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end this episode. Bisous, ciao. Lovely to talk to all you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and tune back next week for The Layla Show.
The Layla Show.